Okay, here we go. Today we're going to compare and order decimals. So in order to do that, we need to follow these 5 easy steps. Write your decimal vertically. Make sure that that word vertical is stuck in your head. Vertically, that means going up and down. Okay, and align the decimal points. Fill up any black decimal spaces with zeros. Then we're going to compare left side of the decimal first. Then we're going to compare the right side of the decimal second. And be sure to follow the directions when ordering. In other words, we're going to put them from least to greatest, or we're going to put them from greatest to least. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. Okay, and here's a shortcut of how to remember what the word vertical means. So this is very important, especially when we get to graphing. You need to understand what vertical and horizontal, what directions those are. And if you look at this vertically, if you're talking about the x and the y axis, which has nothing to do with decimals, but I just want to go ahead and tell you this. This is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, right? Well, if you look really closely right here, at the top of the y, that looks like a V for vertical. Okay, so that's just one way I remember it. The y-axis is a vertical axis; it goes up and down. All right, so now let's scroll down a little bit. We're going to put these decimals in orders from the greatest to the least. So step number 1 told us to write the decimals vertically, aligning those decimal points. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to write them up and down. So 1.875, 0.9, 1.42, and 0.873. Again, I didn't read those correctly, but this will be 1 and 875 thousandths. This is only 9/10ths. This is 1 and 42 hundredths, and this is 873 thousandths. Okay, so I aligned them vertically, and I made sure that my decimals were also aligned. That's the most important part when you compare decimals. Make sure you know that. So that was step number 1. Step number 2, fill up any blank decimal spaces with zeros. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I'm going to fill in a couple of zeros right here. Since this one has 3 numbers behind the decimal, I need to have 3 numbers behind the decimal in every one. So this one only needs 1 0, and this doesn't need any zeros. It already has 3 numbers behind the decimal. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my steps, and I'm going to make sure I do step by step. Now we're going to compare the left side of the decimal first. So I'm going to come over here. This is the left side. So I'm going to compare this side right here. I have a 1, a 0, 1, and a 0. And since I'm going from greatest to least, the biggest number has to be first in my list. And I know a 1 and a 1 are going to come before the 0 and the 0. Okay, but which of these two ones comes before the other? Well, here's where the second or the fourth step comes in. Then we'll compare the right side of the decimal second. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to compare this ones now. Between the 8 and the 4, the 8 is bigger. So this one has to be first in my list. And it already happened to be the first one in my list, and that's okay. So this one's going to be the first one. Okay, so I'm done with that one. Now I'm going to do between these 3, the 1 is going to be bigger than the 0 and the 0. So I know this one has to be the second one in my line, in my list. So it's 1 and 420 thousandths, or really 1. And I really don't need that extra 0 in the back. And then now I have between the 0.900 and the 0.873. Well, since these two are zeros are the same, I have to look at the second number, and in this case the 9 is bigger than the 8. So all I have to do is, I know that 9 is going to be first before this one, so this one's going to be the third place, so it's going to be 0.9, and finally the last one is going to be the fourth place, so it's going to be 873 thousandths, and that's it. I have just put them in order from greatest to least. In going in order from the greatest to the least, that's going in descending order. You need to know this word for vocabulary in my class, especially for the STAR test. Descending, that's one of the main things that you need to remember. So put a star by it, do whatever you need to do, highlight it. That descending means greatest to least. Okay? Alright, here's another one that you can do the same way. I'm going to let you do that one so you can get a little practice. Remember, follow your steps just like I did right here. Put them in a line, align those decimals up and down. That's the most important thing about working with decimals. You have to make sure you align them when you're going to compare them. Have to be in a straight line. Okay, we're going on the other side, and now we're going from least to greatest. So I'm going to do this one with you, and you can do the other one by yourself. So let's line them up. It's 965 thousandths and 1 and 008, whoops, which is correctly read as 1 and 8 thousandths because that's in the thousands place. And then this is 86 hundredths because the 6 is in the hundredths place. And then finally this is 99 hundredths as well because that's in the hundredths place. The next step is to fill in some zeros, some missing zeros. I have a missing 0 right here and a missing 0 right there. That's it. And make sure that your decimals are aligned. They're in a straight line, so I know I'm good. So now all I have to do now is look at the numbers and see which one's first, which one's next, and so forth. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to look at this column first, and now notice that I'm going from least to greatest. So the smallest one is going to be a 0. We'll have 3 zeros. So that tells me that this one right here is going to be the biggest one, and that's going to make it to be in the last place. Since I have 4 numbers, this is going to be my 4th place out of these 4 values of decimals. So I can go ahead and scratch that one out because I already know where it's going to go. Then the next one I have to go to the second place behind the decimal. The first place behind the decimal, but it's the second number I compare. So 9, 8, and 9. Well, 8 is smaller than 9 and 9, and I'm going from least to greatest. So 8 should come before the 9 and the 9. And actually it's going to be the one in the very, very beginning in my list. So that's going to be my first place. Now the last thing I have to do is compare the next decimal place. Because the 9 and the 9 are equal, I have to look at the next number to see which one's going to be smaller, which one's going to be bigger. I know the 6 is smaller than 9, so this 6 right here tells me this one's going to be right after the first one because it's smaller than the 9. So this is going to be the second place, and that makes this one the third place. Okay, so when I finish that one, I already have my third place, and I already had my fourth place from before. So all I have to do now is put them in order from least to greatest, and that is called the ascending order. Oops, I misspelled it. Ascending order. Okay, that's going from the smallest value to the biggest value, from little to big, ascending. Okay, so the first number is 0.860, which happens to be this one right here. So that's 8600. Okay, finish with that one. Then the second one was 0.965. That's this one right here. So that's 965 thousandths. And then the third one is 0.990. So that's this one right here. So that's 99 hundredths. And finally 4 is this one right here, which is 1 and 8 thousandths. Okay, now make sure that these commas look like commas and not like decimals. Okay, this is a comma, they separate the values. And these are the decimals, so make sure you make them nice and dark so I don't have to be looking for them, wondering if you put them there or not. Because if you leave off your decimal, I'm going to count it wrong. The decimal changes the value of the number. Okay, so that's it. We're finished with that one. Now you can do this one by yourself. And which of the following numbers is between 0.67 and 0.82, or 67 hundredths and 82 hundredths? Well, now we have 3 numbers that we have to choose from. So in this case, we have to put together another alignment, which I already know that 0.67 is going to be smaller than 0.82 because I'm looking at that 6 and I'm looking at that 8. So I'm going to put 6 up there and I'm going to put 8 right up here. Okay. Notice these have 2 decimal places. So that means that my numbers that I'm comparing needs to have 2 decimal places. This one has 2, this one has 2, but this one only has 1. So I'm going to fill in a 0 so you can have 2. Okay, now 0.66, I'm comparing it to this 0.67. The 0.66 comes before 0.67. So I'm going to write this one over here. Okay, then this one is 0.59. Uh-oh, that one comes before the 6. This is a 5, it's smaller than the 6. So this one will really come way up here, 0. Actually, I'm going to scoot those down right quick so you can see them better. Okay. So we started with 0.67, and then we went to 0.66 was right above it, and then this next one is going to be 0.59, and then 0.80. Well, that's close to the 8, but is it before or is it after? Well, we have to look at this next number. That's a 0, that's a 2. So this one's smaller, so it goes right below it. I mean, right above it. So the question is, which of the following numbers is between that 6.7, 67 hundredths, and 82 hundredths? And these are my two numbers that I started with, and the only one that's in between is 0.80. So my answer will be C on that one. Okay, and I'm gonna let you do the last one by yourself. It says Bill, Ken, and Aaron ran a race. Bill finished ahead of Ken but behind Aaron. Which set of times did they run? Okay, so you have to kind of think through this so you can get it right. And we're going to go through this problem in the class when you get there. It's going to be on the board and see if you got the right answer, okay? So make sure you do this one real quick, but be very, very careful. Bill finished ahead. I mean, the Bill finished first. So if you're running on a race, the first place has the least amount of time, okay? So the smaller amount of time, the fewer amount of seconds, that's the person who finished first. So Bill finished ahead of Ken, but also Bill finished behind Aaron. So Aaron beat Bill, okay? So be careful with that. And you might want to draw a little picture and label them and see who is who, and then figure out the seconds that go with them. Okay? All right. Thank you.